Ladies and gentlemen, to induct Christopher Klein, please welcome the writer of Mulan and Lilo and Stitch and the writer and co-director of How to Train Your Dragon, Mr. Dean DeBlois.
Fresh off of Avatar, Jim Cameron stopped by to give a little talk about the film and how he made it. And in answering one of the questions, he said, a lot of people ask me, how do I get to where you are? You know, how do you rise to that level? And he has an answer that I think not only applies to Chris, but I think applies to everybody here at Full Sail as well, which is, he said, don't look at us. Don't look at the people that have kind of made it as far as we are, the veterans. Instead, look at the people around you, because they are the new generation. They are the ones that will replace us when we're gone. Look at the talent, look at the integrity, and look at the drive of the people that surround you. I think that's really pertinent advice, and I think Chris Klein is very exemplary of that. I looked around at the people in my life, and I think, who has that drive, who has that talent, and who has that strength of character, that integrity that will really take that individual all the way. And Chris is that person. To start with talent, he comes from a very musical family, a very artistic family, and as such, he's multifaceted with his abilities. He's a very talented singer-songwriter, talented writer, passion for film, and that multitude of interests is what really brought him here to Full Sail. As you heard in the video, he came here to be a recording engineer, and then upon seeing Toy Story, found himself grabbed by the potential of that. And he was actually in the fledgling, I think the second class of the digital media program here. But he followed that dream. And that's really where the second part of this comes into, is that drive is so important. It's one thing to have the talent, but it really means nothing unless you know how to apply it. And he certainly knew how to apply it. I met Chris shortly after he graduated from the program here and had moved to Los Angeles. And he was working for a lesser-known, smaller house, but really cutting his chops and getting that experience. And from day one, he told me, I want to work at Pixar. And I thought, well, that's a pretty lofty dream. I mean, those guys are very selective. They're kind of removed from Hollywood. They have their own little safe haven up in the Bay Area, and it's a difficult spot to get into. So hats off to anyone who tries, but more so to anyone who gets in. But it's that persistence, it's that drive. He got rejected time and time again for 6 years. And every time he would take the feedback and he would incorporate that and resubmit. And several rejection letters later, he just didn't stop. And like he said, that the day that he heard that Brad Bird had left Warner Brothers and had joined the ranks over at Pixar, well, that was it. You know, because that guy was really his hero at the time. I think he still is. And so he just put everything he had into it, and he went one more time, and without fearing the rejection, he just went for it. And I think that's the drive that really gets people over the line. So he was accepted, he was brought in, and he worked on no less than 7 Pixar films now, all the way from Monsters, Inc. to The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Finding Nemo, Up, and Brave. He's working on Brave right now with a new director. And with every step, just constantly kind of accelerating and gaining rank and gaining respect from his peers. And that's really the third part of this, is character, strength of character. There are a lot of people in this industry who gather and harbor the information because of this sort of perceived nervousness that someone might take your job. And it's truly the inspirational ones that understand that you're supported best by the people around you. And, you know, working as a director now, I know that I stand on the shoulders of everyone that supports the production, and I try to surround myself with the people who are most talented. So Chris knows this. He knows this, and as such, he's garnered the respect of every peer at Pixar, and he gives of that information. Everything that we've learned along the way through our mentors and our peers in the industry, he comes back. He's come back to Full Sail, I believe, 4 times to lecture to the students and talk to them about what he's learned along the way from the perspective of having been here and wanting that knowledge. And so I think that's really important, to not only be a sponge for what people have gained in terms of knowledge and want to pass on, but then to also be that conduit. Because now when we look back, I mean, we were talking about this just the other day, it doesn't seem like that long ago that Chris and I were both in school, aspiring to be, you know, the Steven Spielbergs and the Ridley Scotts and the Jim Camerons of the world. But now we're kind of along that path, and we can look back and we were, you know, 10 or 20 years into it, and there are people that actually look up to us and want to hear about our experiences and what we can pass on. And so it's a really interesting perspective, because we still have those same heroes out there, and yet at the same time, people are now beginning to appreciate our work, and they want to hear from us. And so I think Chris is fantastic in all of those respects, a very talented man, a very driven man, and a very giving man. So I'm very proud to call him a very good friend of mine. We've been friends for many years, and I'm sure we will be collaborators as we go forward. We're only grazing the surface, and I know he has so much more to do with his life on all creative fronts. So please join me in welcoming 2010 inductee, Chris Klein.